So many different fitness gyms now. By far, we will be the best.
There we go. So have you been able to do any speaking events recently? Are you guys starting to get back out on the road or?
You know what, in person, we did one last weekend. This weekend, we're going out to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and I'm doing Ripken.
Really?
And they got a big baseball tournament, and so I'll be talking to all those coaches and kids and parents, and looking forward to it, man. Being under house arrest for 16 months, kind of not fun.
And that's honestly, I feel the most important time to be talking to people and spreading, your message, what you've been through, like never giving up in a sense, because everybody's forced to look at themselves in the mirror and really think deep about what like their next thing's going to be. Because with that locked in their house for 15 months, like you're either going to go stir crazy. And for people who, struggle with either mental health or they're in broken homes or something, like that's a tough thing to come back from. And you're like forced to face the music in that sense.
Absolutely, man. We got into virtual. I did a lot of virtual, but talking to yourself on a computer screen and looking at yourself, that gets old. I try not to even look at mirrors.
It's cool to connect with people. Like, we wouldn't probably be connecting right now if we didn't both know how to use Zoom calls,
But you and I are face to face. When I'm talking on a computer, most everybody's blocked off and you can't see what they're getting and you don't know if they're paying attention or petting their dog or whatever. And so I don't know. I've never seen the world locked down like that. I'm 57, and I've never in my lifetime have I seen anything like this. So.
Oh my God! Like something like this. That's what's on their screen. Just nothing, and you have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brutal. Well, I won't take too much of your time. I know you're a busy man with everything you got going on, but I was so pumped to talk to you today. I'm glad we found a time to do it. Just about, your experiences in your life, everything that you've done, the mentality that you've been able to grow, prosper, and, spread throughout the world, which has helped, thousands upon millions of people, I'm sure, with your story, not only, achieving your dream early on in life, but again, going through struggles later in life and, overcoming and conquering some of those, struggles that you've had. Obviously, you defeated Parkinson's, right?
I did. And you know what? 99.9% of the people are ecstatic. They're like, God is so good.
Yeah.
The other have been on the other side of it, and they're like, well, I watched a loved one go through Parkinson's and they kept getting stuff and they died. So how dare you say you had Parkinson's? You weren't there with me when I went through 70 surgeries and 2 brain surgeries, and I'm not part of your life and you're not part of mine. All you know is what I tell you. And so I had it. My elderly mother bought me a cane to walk around the block, and I no longer have that. And I run 5 to 7 miles a day, and I lift every day, and I can turn a circle with my eyes closed and not fall over and hit my head against something to give me more CT symptoms. And we take for granted what we know because that's all we know is what we know. And so when you hear somebody else's story, I think we get locked in on, well, what I encountered was nothing like that, so that didn't happen. Well, that's not true. Many people encounter many different things. So,
I was gonna say you're like peak physical performance right now. Like not to say you're old or anything, but like you are in peak physical performance for a guy your age. Most guys your age aren't in that peak physical performance, and yet you're kicking ass and doing what you want to do.
Well, here's the deal. At 35, I was supposed to be retiring from baseball, not getting back into it.
Yeah.
And now at 57, I've got my health back, and I don't want to sit still.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to.
That is a great mentality to have. It's very inspiring too to see, the very few, kind of the 1% in that sense of people being like, oh my God, if he can do that, I can do that. And that's the message that you've obviously spread across. At what point did you decide that you wanted to spread that message more? Obviously, they contacted you about making the movie after, you were able to accomplish your dream. But after that, what kind of inspired you and set your soul on fire to want to do public speaking and spread that message that way?
My baseball agent at the time, and he goes, you need to be a public speaker. I'm like, dude, absolutely not going to happen. I don't want to talk to myself, so I'm not going to talk to other people. And then he goes, I already signed your name on a contract. I said, you forged my name? He said, yes, I did. And you're talking to this company on this date. And it was Major League Soccer, front office people. And so I go up to Dallas and he goes, you got to talk for 45 minutes, write everything down, rehearse it. I didn't write anything down. I didn't rehearse. I went up there and just started from point A to point Z what my story was. And captive audience, man. Nobody picked up a phone. Nobody went to the bathroom. And I thought, these guys are with Major League Soccer and they're enthralled by this. And I was into it. And I thought, wow, this is going to be fun. And so for 20 years, we've done that. And now it's reaching around the world. And we got, somebody heard me do a podcast over in India, and then that word spread. And now my new book is selling over there like hotcakes. They're in the middle of the pandemic again with the variant, and just happy that my story, which is what I've tried to do, is taper it around things that I've done right and wrong. And so the humor I've instilled, and if you want to ask me about that, you can. I learned to instill humor because we all want a good story and we want to know the ups and downs, but we don't want somebody, you don't want me sitting up here going, well, this person did this and this person did that and they did it totally wrong. Now this is what I did right and wrong. And I make fun of me, and I only make fun of me. And if you want to laugh at me, go ahead, man, because you know what? Everybody else has at some point, and to the point where they were like, you're 35 and you're going back to baseball?
Yeah.
It's a bet with my kids, man. If I don't do this, they don't believe in adults. And where are we?
Wow. And I've always wanted to ask you, you know, like hypothetically, like you obviously wanted to inspire those kids to be better than what they were told they were, because it seemed like it was a very broken, you know, environment from the top at that school of being told like, you're not good enough. Like these kids are never going to amount to anything. You believed in them. You made a deal with them. If you win the district championship, I'll at least attempt to go after my dream at 35 years old to try and be a big league baseball player. Did you have any inkling in your mind? Like, obviously you wanted them to get, you know, become better than they ever have, bring out the best in each other. Did you, you know, honestly think that that was going to happen in that scenario? And now you're thinking like, okay, now I got to accomplish my dream.
I didn't think they would win. I wanted them to be better.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to know the only limits that we have in this life are the limits we put on ourselves. So if you start listening to outside environment telling you can't do it, you're beaten already.
Yeah.
You got to have a drive within you to go out and do better than you thought you could. And when I pushed them, they pushed back and we became better. Let's look at it. At that point in time, 9 surgeries, I weighed 260 pounds, not baseball material. And at 28, I had a surgery in which they cut 85% of my deltoid muscle out and said, you will never, ever pitch again, physically impossible. And so instead of throwing 98, I come back at 35, throwing 98 to 102. And they're like, where did this come from? I'm like, you know, because there's really no other explanation. Even the medical community is like, this shouldn't happen, because even when Dr. Joe went back in, he goes, I have no idea why you throw as hard as you do. We've MRI'd your arm. You have nothing there. And you're throwing harder than you ever have with better movement. We have no idea why. And so for me, that was just furthering the fact that I made a commitment to a group of kids. And when I pushed them, they pushed back, and we made each other better. We were a team.
Did you feel like you were throwing 98 the first time you stepped out on the mound? Or were you like going into that thinking like, it's not even going to show up on the radar gun? Like, this is going to be bad.
Here's the deal. In the movie, it depicts me throwing at a radar gun on the side of the road. That actually didn't happen. That's one of 15% that Disney put in. But Dennis loved it. And our director, John Lee Hancock, loved it. And it let everybody know. I had no idea till I got to the tryout. So I really had no idea until I got to the tryout, because at the beginning of the season in 1999, the kids couldn't hit me. By the end of the season, these 16 and 17-year-old kids are raking me all over the ballpark. I'm like, oh yeah, now you're going to go impress a major league scout. And when I get there, I've got my 3 kids in tow. Nobody will even play catch with me, because they're like, who's this old crazy dude here? And then I go out there and they're like, you throw 98. And I'm like, what? And I was stunned, you know. And when you find out you're 35 and you find out you're throwing 98, there's a happy dance going on in your head.
Yeah.
The next thing you think is, I've been throwing 98 at high school kids. I'm getting sued is what I'm getting.
Yep.
And so this whole circle comes about, and I go home and I call my kids. And they're like, we told you, coach. It never even dawned on me why we got knocked out of the playoffs against a kid who couldn't throw out of a wet paper bag. But that's why we were out so far out in front of everything, we couldn't adjust. And in the 7 innings we had in 3 different games, you know, it was 1-1 going into the last game, and we're down by 6 runs in the last inning. I'm like, why can't we adjust? And so I told the kids, I said, scoot up at the box, pull the bat down, and then swing. And then we started, and we came back. It was 7-6 with bases loaded, but we ended up getting out. And the kids made a great comeback. And to this day, those kids still credit everything that I had done for them. And I credit them with everything that I've been able to do. Baseball, speaking, being a father, believing in what you're talking about. Because for a while, you're sitting there, you're like, I'm pulling everything that my grandparents taught me from the age of 15 to 18, putting it into a group of kids, and now they're wadding it up and they're throwing it back at me like a wiffle ball, and I've got to adjust on the fly. And so when I went to that tryout, I thought, this is going to be so embarrassing. It's not even going to be funny. And when I left there, I was stunned. And so when I go home and call the kids, they're like, coach, you told us if we ever had our dream in front of us, you'd chase it no matter what. Because at the end of the day, when you walk away, you want to know that you did your very best. You don't want to wake up one day and go, what if? You have the answer.
Wow. Do you still stay in touch with most of the kids from that team? Because I feel like that's a unique connection to have with a group of guys.
I do. And I got 2 quick stories for you. One, I started a foundation, Jim the Rookie Morris Foundation, where we go to inner cities and help kids get back off the streets, into the classroom and on the field. And we did a school in Fort Worth, and all those kids that were on that team went around getting us donations and endorsements from all these people. And this little bitty foundation that I started ended up having the NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, and then the school that was involved, we redid their field, we redid the weight room, we got stuff for not only the baseball team, but the girls softball team. And before COVID hit last year, both teams were undefeated before everything got shut down. But it got the alumni involved. So the alumni started buying computers for kids, and they started planting flowers and trees around campus. And this was a school, I will tell you, Jack, when you walk through, when we saw the baseball field, we're like, oh, we got to do something about that. Then you walk through the hallways and you're like, I wish I had more money because I would love to do something about this. But when you bring attention to something in a positive manner, like we want to get these kids, 27% of these kids were from 2-parent families, actually lived at home with their parents. The rest of the percentage were couch hopping between aunts, uncles, grandparents, or friends. And so all they'd ever known was beat down, beat down, beat down. And you can't even dress a group of kids to go to play 10 miles down the road. And these kids get off the bus and they're playing a team basically that has a turf field.
Yeah.
And they've got 10 sets of uniforms, and they got 20 hats and all these bats and all these endorsements from different people. It's not fair. And so to be able to go in and do that, those kids that were on my team back in 99 saw this and they were like, we're helping. And that got everybody else involved. And that was the first one. The second story is shorter. And I will tell you this. I had a kid in my class, science class, for 2 years. He was in my class because he failed and I failed him. He never did any work. And when he would show up, he never said a word. You couldn't get anything out of him. But every day I would talk to him. And every day I would say, hi, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do? And I didn't hear from this kid for 15 years. And after 15 years, I got a letter saying, Coach, if it wasn't for you, I don't know where I would be, because you were the one teacher who took the time to talk to me every single day. And while I didn't say anything, I was storing it up in my brain. He goes, I'm married to the most wonderful person on the planet. I have 2 daughters who I think the world of, and I would lay my life down for. I own an oil company. He goes, money and oil are the last things I think of. It is my 3 girls, my wife and my daughters. And I give that credit to you, because without you, I would have been lost. And I'm like, didn't come out of a book. It came out of life lessons. And that letter came out of nowhere, and I was stunned when I got it.
Wow. And it's amazing to see how not only the school, but like so many people were affected by not only just one message, because I've heard you say before in some of your events, 1+1 doesn't always equal 2. It equals something much bigger than that, right? Like it took one
Absolutely.
message to spread like a virus per se. And now you look at it 20, 30 years later, it's completely revamped. The entire mentality of that school has completely changed because of that message. And I am very intrigued to get your thoughts on this kind of hypothetical question, because obviously it's well documented, growing up, you and your dad didn't have a great relationship. But then you mentioned, moving in with your grandparents for 3 summers, 15 through 18, your grandfather being the biggest inspiration in your life,
Yeah.
most selfless, kind, he lived for other people. And I've heard you say that multiple times. But hypothetically, do you think your mentality would be completely different if you hadn't moved in with your grandparents for those 3 summers later on in your childhood?
It wasn't just the summers, Jack. It was from 15 to 18.
Yeah.
I lived with my grandparents, and for 15 years, I heard my parents throw, hit, curse, and say things to each other you promise never to do when you walk down the aisle of a church.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Brownwood with my grandparents, and in 3 years, I never heard my grandfather raise his voice. And all they did was lift each other up. There was never negative. And my grandmother was a numbers genius. She was our church secretary for 30 years, but she also did accounting for my grandfather. And she could do trig in her head, which, skips generations because I didn't get that gift. But they always helped each other, and they always found a way to give back. They were never rich. But my grandparents knew and influenced so many people because he had fought in World War II. He lost his brother while he was there. Unbeknownst to him, being exposed to a chemical 30 years later, he gets ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. And I watched this 6'3", 260-pound giant of a man go from leading people on his shoulders while he's healthy to leading people on his shoulders from a wheelchair. Never complained, never griped, never said anything negative. This is what life is. And, the Christian part of that is he and I are in the kitchen one night. He's in a wheelchair, hooked up to oxygen, stooped over with clay in his hand, trying to keep some dexterity and movement in. And ALS, for listeners who don't know, the brain works fine. The body doesn't listen to it anymore. And so he's trying to keep a little bit of movement. And I look at him, and I'm 18. I got my whole life in front of me. And now I'm mad because these are my mentors. And I'm like, this is not fair. Why did God do this to you? And my grandfather drew in some breath, and he goes, I've worked my whole life to get to where I'm going. Where are you headed? He never complained. He never said anything negative about it. It's just how it is. And that is a life lesson in unto itself. So my grandparents taught me to be positive, think positively. Now I was 18 at the time. There were definitely some dark times through my teens and early 20s where I didn't take that advice and I want to do everything my way. And that is not how the world works. But if we keep a smile on our face and we keep getting after it every single day, the dream we start chasing may not be the one we end up loving the most. Because when you do your very best, other dreams will pop up. And if we see those, we may fall in love with something else. And not only my grandparents taught me that, but that group of high school kids taught me that. So yeah, dreams.
What were some of the kind of crazy things you did under that household between 15 and 18 that you said that weren't quite, living up to those standards?
It wasn't really with them. It was after that when I got drafted and the doctors, we're going to do Tommy John. You need to take off 12 to 18 months. And I would take off like 12 weeks and I would try to start tossing again. And I know my body better than the doctor does. He's only been to school for like 20 years. What does he know? And, my own worst enemy at the time. And sometimes we look at people and we're like, that person is against me. Sometimes we're looking in the mirror when we say that.
I mean, that's so, again, like mind-blowing to hear, because you go from, I feel like a complete 180, those first 15 years, the way you describe it, do you have obviously it showed in the movie like kind of a reconciliation between you and your father, but do you guys have a good relationship now, or at least better than it was before?
He passed away a few years ago, but I will tell you this, I won't say the words he told me, but it was in church at my grandmother's funeral. She was 98 when she passed away. It was my father's parents, by the way, that I went to live with. And I went up to my dad and I put my arm on her shoulder and I said, I am so sorry. I said, Alice is where she wants to be. She's back with Ernest. And he looked up at me and said, don't ever effing talk to me again. I can do that. And I never did. And to the point where I was in Seattle doing a speech, and my uncle called me in the hotel and he goes, your dad passed away. We're pushing back the funeral till you get back. I said, don't. Just take care of it. Didn't go to the funeral, don't care. Made my reconciliation a long time ago. And I think that we need closure as far as whatever we think closure is. And the fact that what my dad told me in church at my grandmother's funeral, you don't want me to talk to you? I won't talk to you. Because I need good people around me. I need dream makers. I need mentors. I need the people who are going to make me better, not the people who want to tear me down. My father was physically and verbally abusive. He's holding my little brother, and one day he looks down at me and he goes, this is the one we wanted. We never wanted you. And so from being a kid growing up through that, you learn to be the best me I can be. And sometimes without the people who we need most telling us they love us, because that never came.
Did you ever ask your grandfather or grandmother why that was? Because again, it was your father's parents, and it seemed like a completely different environment, you know?
That is not something you would ask my grandfather about ever. Maybe in heaven one day, but
Really?
my grandmother, she would just look at me and go, he's always been that way. And even to the point where I would do speeches later on, and I'm talking in front of companies or school districts where people are in charge who had gone to school with my dad when he was a kid. And they were like, he's always been that way. He would pitch in a little league game and hit somebody on purpose just so he could fight. That's all he's ever wanted to do. He wanted to fight. And I thought, wow. And he would fit well in the world today because everybody wants to fight and we're divided and we're fearful and we're angry. We need to get back to where we love each other and respect each other and we want to treat each other well, not tear each other down.
Wow. And again, being through that for most of your childhood, getting to experience something completely different and being raised in a household where, again, like everybody should be loving each other, not hating each other, or at least taking their own hates and insecurities out on other people. Because now you as a father, you know, you raised your kids right. You raised them the way that you wanted to be treated.
My wife and I raised 5 kids.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, you're like, is this ever going to end? So you have 2 sons and 3 daughters and everybody's completely different. And then you get to the other side of it and you're like, wow, I blinked and it was over. That's not fair. And you look at that and you're like, we did the best we could do with the arsenal that we had. And I never cursed my kids. I never hit my kids. I never told them they were worthless. I built them up so that they could achieve anything they wanted to. And my kids are successful. And they may not think the way I want them to think, but they are their own people now. They're their own adults and they're going to do what they want to. And all I can do is urge them to be the best them they can be. I can't be the best Ernest Morris because that was my grandfather and he was the best him he could be. But I can be the best Jim Morris.
Yep.
And I think that we get out there, and if you want to put in a sports analogy, I can't be the best Nolan Ryan that ever lived because Nolan Ryan's Nolan Ryan.
Yep.
But I was the best me I could be. And I didn't last that long. But the only reason I was there was because of a group of high school kids in West Texas that everybody else counted out. And we made each other better.
Man, I mean, that's so interesting to hear. Because again, like, you know, me being a family of 5 people, we're all different human beings. Wherever that comes from, it comes from. Everybody's got their own different personality, their own way of, you know, walking through life. The one story I found very funny is the one you told about one of your sons, you know, meeting George Bush and being like, and he's saying, do you want to grow up to be a ball player like your dad? And he was just like, no, sir, I hate, what was it? Baseball sucks.
Baseball sucks. He told the president of the United States that, a guy who loves baseball, owned a Major League Baseball team at one time. You want to be a ball player? No, baseball sucks. I'm going to be a lawyer. And I'm like, who are you? You want to be a lawyer? Nobody likes lawyers unless they need one. And you know what? He's a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of him. And he's a very smart kid. I say kid now, he's 31. And I'm like, okay, if he's in his 30s, that means I'm older.
Yeah.
And so my kids, I'm very proud of them. And they think the way they think because of the experiences they've been through, just like everybody else. And I can't change what anybody else has been through. All I can do is say, life is what we make of it. And if we think everything stinks, then everything's going to stink. But if we think there's a chance and we think there's a dream and we think there's a hope, then that's what we need to hold on to, because there always is, and it's always going to get better.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't go A to B like that, you know, like you accomplished your dream in a way that nobody else ever has, at least at a ball player's level. Your son, how old was he when he told Bush that he wanted to be a lawyer? So I feel like he was really young, and then obviously 20 plus years later, he actually accomplished it.
He was 10.
Oh my God. Who looks at that and be like, I want to be a lawyer at 10 years old and then eventually accomplishes it? Like, you got to be damn proud of the fact that he actually went after it and said, like, that's what I'm going to be. And here he is 20 years later.
And then he went out and did it, and he loves it. And I couldn't be more proud of him, because he did make up his mind and he did do the studying. And I have him, and I have my youngest daughter who graduated college at like 20.
Yeah.
Right. And then she turns 21 the day after she graduates from college. And then 2 weeks later, she gets married because she wants to, not because she has to. She wants to. And now she's 22 and has a master's degree. And she and her husband both, he's in IT, and she does stuff for the university. And they were both hired by the university because they do things the right way. And just very grounded kids for that age. And I look at them and I'm like, when I was 22, I was messing up, man. And not through anybody's fault except my own, but these kids have it together and they know what they want, and they went out and they got it. And I have no doubt they're going to be extremely wealthy because they know how to do it. And I would love to say that I taught my daughter to think that way, but I did not. And I pushed her to be her best, but not from the lessons did she get from me. Did she go, I'm going to be smart? That's all on her, man. And this is a kid who would come home as a junior and spend 8 hours a night doing homework, because that's the hardest year in high school now. And I never had to tell her to study. She would come in, sit down, and study. Most of the time she would have other kids come over because they were as smart as her and they were pushing each other. And that's where I think we have a breakdown now, is we don't have that team. We don't have the family team, and we don't have that core of friend team that's going to make us better. We have one or two in that group going, hey, we don't need to study today, or hey, we don't need to go to practice today. It's all solved for us, and let's just skip today. And then a day becomes 2 and 2 becomes 3, and then you get an F and you're like, what happened? Well, we lost focus. And we don't know how to focus, and we don't know how to think positively. We don't know how to put good people around us who make us better.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I feel like that comes from life experiences. Like, you could take certain traits from your parents growing up, like, oh, he does that because dad did that, or his mom does that, you know, just like little things. But the experiences are what make you your own unique person, especially if you have something that, you know, a quote unquote a why or a reason to get up in the morning, you know, like, this is what I want to accomplish. And you get knocked down, and then some things go your way, some things don't. And then it formulates into who you are today, which, whatever you're doing. Because again, you wanted to be a ball player first and foremost, and it didn't happen, to a point where you basically said, like, it's not going to happen. You coach this high school team, you know, they believe in you, you make a deal, they miraculously, you know, hold up their end of the bargain, and now you have to do that on your own. Did you know, like, right when that happened, that you were like, okay, I'm a man of my word, I got to go into this? Or were there second thoughts? Because obviously, as a family man with children, like, you got to factor in those things.
No second thoughts. My kids know that back and forth, my high school kids. And so we would laugh and giggle, but I'm not asking them to do anything I wouldn't do. And so when we did drills, I'd get in there and do them with them.
Yeah.
And so when we end up winning a district championship, I'm like, I can embarrass myself for a few minutes. That's okay. The only people who are going to know about it are the people who were there, and then my high school kids, and that's it. And then I don't embarrass myself. And then I come back 2 days, and half my high school kids are there, and my kids are there, and they're watching me throw 98 and rain so bad they had to hand me a brand new a brand new ball every pitch. And then I signed a contract, all because of these kids. It's not anything I thought, I'm going to go out and play baseball today. That's kind of ridiculous at 35, weighing 260, having 9 arm surgeries. You don't do that.
Yeah.
And something changed. And you know what? You keep your promises. My grandfather always told me that. He goes, keep your word, because that's how you're going to be remembered. And I kept my word, knowing I could embarrass myself, but that embarrassment never came.
Wow. And when you went, did you go single A, double A when they first put you?
Dude, I went to rehab camp.
Did you?
Guys that get well from injuries and surgeries, they took my Dr. Peppers and homemade tortillas away from me and said, you're running. I'm like, I did not sign up to run. I signed up to pitch. And they're like, that goes along with it. And I thought I was going to die for a couple of weeks. 3 weeks, the best diet I never want to be on again. Then I went to double A. So I'm already higher than I was the first time around when I was only in high A. And I was doing it all for myself and all about me. And now I'm doing it for everybody else but me. And now it's working. And so I spent 3 days in double A. I threw 2 of those nights. And the next day I'm in triple A. And 2 months there, I'm watching guys on their way up, on their way down, and guys just trying to hold on. And because of those kids, I get my big league dream at 35. Well, if I'd have got that dream at 19 without having to work for it and seeing what life is about, I'd have been a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
But having gone through life and raising kids and responsible for so many more, I relished every single moment of my days in the big leagues because I got to hang out with the best ball players in the world. And it may have been a short, brief period of time, but I did it.
Yep.
And I did it because of those kids.
At what point did they approach you, like directors and writers approach you about a potential movie about it? And were you interested at all?
Here's the deal. One of the producers on the movie, Mark Ciardi, was my roommate back in '84. And he started calling me. He'd gotten into Hollywood, and he goes, I work out with Eisner every day during lunch. We saw this interview you did in Durham. And he started calling me in Durham. He goes, dude, we want to make a movie about you. And I'm like, you're not making a comedy about me, click. And he would call back, and dude, we want to make a movie. I said, no, I'm here for the summer. And then I'm going to go back to this school in Fort Worth, this great big high school, to coach baseball, be an assistant football coach, teach these kids science, and that's it. And then I get called up to the big leagues, and we go to Anaheim, right? So Bill Plaschke for the LA Times writes this huge article in the Sunday paper, covers the whole front page of the sports page. That third night in the big leagues, I had to change my name in the hotel because everybody was calling about documentaries, about books, about movies. And I'm like, so for those 4 days, before I would go to the field every day, my agent and I drove around meeting all these different, we met so many people who wanted their version of a movie they thought they should put out there. As we're walking across the grounds of Disney, Steve looks at me and goes, what is it you want? I said, I want a movie about kids who are already counted out even before they ever try to accomplish anything. I said, the other part of that, I want a movie that adults can relate to, because at some point we've all tried to do something, and for some reason we've lost focus. Either we failed at it and we quit, or we just, life got on top of us and we just quit dreaming. And then we get that second chance. Are we going to take it or not? And when I walk in and Mark is there and Eisner's there, they're like, this is what we have. We have this movie, and he repeats everything I said in the parking lot. And I'm like, Mickey Mouse has big ears. They heard everything I said. And I was sold on it before we walked out with Disney, because they had the exact thing I wanted. And they did such a good job of putting the movie together. Now, we filmed it from the end to the beginning, and I had no idea what they were doing. But the final product, amazing. I watched the movie with my wife, in Burbank before it came out. It was in black and white. There was no music yet. And they're like, hey, what do you think? 3 hours of movie. And I'm like, okay. 2 weeks later, I'm in Nashville doing a religious broadcasters convention. And I have to watch the movie before I get up and speak to this crowd. And I have to quit crying before I can go up because I'm stunned. And during this period of time, Dennis and I had become great friends. And when he got the job, he said, if you see anything being filmed that you do not agree with, you tell me it's out. And he lived by his word. And so, you know, with the book Dream Makers that we put out, it came out last year, he wrote the foreword to it. And I didn't even want to bother the man because he's so busy. And I don't want to encroach on somebody else's world. And my book person who helped me write the book and my wife were like, no, we need to call him. And so they did behind my back. And he's like, sure, I'd love to do it. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this. And then he writes it. I'm like stunned. The forward is amazing. I was just blown away of what he thought of me and what he thinks of me. And people go, are you still in contact with him? Yeah, I got his number in my phone. It still stuns me when Dennis will call me out of the blue and I see Dennis Quaid on my phone. I'm like, what? It's still to this day, it's living a dream. And it all goes back to those kids in Big Lake.
It seems like a lot of people do stuff behind your back. Someone's forging your signature to get you to do live events. People are going behind your back to write a forward. Wow.
I know, right? And it all ends up working out better than I ever thought it could.
Because you're surrounding yourself with people that care about you and want the best for you. And was there anything, because again, like Dennis Quaid being the stand-up guy that he is, you know, asked you, like, if there's anything you don't like, it's out. You know, like he wanted to portray you in the best possible way that he could, because it is a true story and you want your story to be told, as well as those kids' stories. Was there anything that you depicted from that you wish they would have touched on more? Or was there anything that you didn't like about the film, given that it was about you and your story?
That's a little bit loaded because at the beginning, yes, I would have liked my grandparents to be portrayed more in the movie. But then as I'm out on the road speaking, I get to expand the story that I know, and it's not in film. And so I can talk about my grandparents as a grandchild who is now a man looking back at those lessons going, they taught me how to be a good human being and a good man. And bottom line, they made me a better person. Those kids in Big Lake made me a better person. So, you know, when the movie came out, the kids all called, they're like, Coach, you made us look like the Bad News Bears. I go, you weren't supposed to look that good. And, you know, that's because that's the relationship we have and we all giggle. And the other day there was a post that my wife had put out and my second baseman sends it back and goes, hey, Coach, why don't you tell your wife about the time I broke your ribs? I'm like, you did not put that on Facebook, man. He throws a ball from center field. They're all out in the field shagging. It's batting practice. I'm pitching. The ball bag is down by my feet and hadn't been taken back out the second where the screen is. He throws a ball trying to hit the bag and hits me in the back and breaks 2 of my ribs. And I'm like, you didn't have to go there, Wack. That's uncalled for. And he's just laughing. And you put people around you that you want to make you better. And whether we do that in school or on a team or our friends or at work, when you hire people as smart or smarter than you that are going to lift you up, because we're not all smart in the same thing.
Yep.
Some people can talk, some people can analyze, and some people can put down on paper, now computer, every thought they have, and it ends up being better. You add all those into that equation and you've got a great team. And that's what I want people to get out of it.
So, you know, in your years of public speaking, with everything that you've done and obviously your stories out there, have you gotten, you know, contacted by either, you know, kids who were told growing up that they'd amount to nothing, or coaches out there that wanted, again, like revitalize what you did? Like, what was the most inspiring story that you've heard from someone that's reached out to you after all of this?
I've gotten a lot. I mean, some Olympians from Australia going, I got to go to the Olympics because I didn't give up because of you. And I'm like, but you went to the Olympics. And then I'm doing, you know, all across the country. I went back to nursing school and I went back to medical school. But this one woman stands out in my mind. And I'd done this breakfast for millionaires in San Francisco. And so I speak, I take pictures, I sign autographs. After they all leave, this lady who's waiting on tables comes up to me and she's crying. And I don't know if you know this, Jack, but when you have kids, something happens to a man and you develop the ability to cry.
Wow.
And so I see her crying, so I start crying. And I haven't even talked to her yet. And she had waited till everybody else left to come up to me. And she walks up and hugs me and she goes, I want you to know that when your movie came out, my husband left me. I took my kids. That was the first movie that I took my kids to the movies by myself. And I want you to know that next week, I start my job as a doctor in this hospital, and I just bought my kids the first house they've ever lived in. That, to me, everybody has a story. It's how we develop that story that makes us who we are. That woman's story, dude, I cried on the plane halfway home because I thought, wow, the things that she's been through to get to be where she is now. Amazing.
Oh my, did she say why he left? Like that was after the movie came out?
The movie had come out and then he left her. And so that was actually the first movie that she'd ever taken her kids to without her husband. And now she's a doctor and she's way smarter than me.
Wow. I mean, again, like you got to feel not only proud, but like those are the things that keep you going. Those are the things that keep you inspired. Like, okay, like this is why I do this on a day where you're not feeling it. You're either bummed out, you're too tired, unmotivated a little bit. Like those are the stuff that keep you going because people are inspired by what you're doing. And that's got to keep feeding your passion to want to do this.
Absolutely, man. And those are the stories we need to hear. But the media doesn't like to put those stories out there because they're positive. There are so many positive stories about ball players and who they help. But we don't want to concentrate on that. We want to talk about the ball player who messes up because that's big news.
Yeah.
Let's start making people feel good about themselves instead of tearing everybody down all the time.
Are there any former or current big league players that obviously know your story that reached out and, you know, shared something that was going on? Because like you said, like we need to start, you know, sending positive vibes out there as opposed to someone who's going through a scandal or abuse in some form or fashion. You know, was there anybody that's ever reached out to you in the past that, you know, was struggling and then you helped them along that way in that regard?
Yeah, and I won't name them, but
Right.
yeah, I have. And I just signed a book for David Fletcher for the Angels yesterday and got that in the mail. And he doesn't even know he's getting the book yet. Somebody else asked me to send it to him. So I signed something in there and I sent it off to him. But Tino Martinez, Bernie Williams, we all did stuff together and went to these dinners for cancer. And, you know, one of the things we did before spring training is we'd go down early, we'd get on the bus, and we'd go around all these businesses trying to drum up people to come into Tropicana Field. But all the teams do it. And we were going into this hospital. And Roberto Hernandez, my best friend in the big leagues, looks at me. He goes, "You bring your Kleenex?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Because we're going to the kids ward." And I said, "Okay, the kids cancer ward." And we walk in there. And all of us would take pictures with these kids. We'd hug them. We'd sign balls for them. And then when one would start crying, they'd walk off. The next one would walk up and start talking to the kid. And then they'd start crying. I mean, Wade Boggs, Roberto Hernandez, Fred McGriff, and all these huge guys brought us to tears because these kids are fighting a battle that we don't have to fight. And through no cause of their own. And they're in the middle of it and they're smiling and they're happy. You know, we get a flat tire and we lose our brains because we got a flat tire. But these kids have cancer. Yep. They're dying. They probably never get out of the hospital, but they're smiling and they're happy. And we need to learn about joy.
How often do you have moments like that where it's like something silly like that? Like you stub your toe, you have a flat tire, something very little goes wrong, but in your head in the moment, you feel like it's much bigger and you kind of have to calm yourself down. Like, okay, like there's people out there who have it much worse than I do, especially after everything that you've been through. Like, you know, like you have to constantly reteach yourself. Like there's something bigger out there, you know, like this isn't a big deal.
Dude, we're human beings.
Right.
a daily basis for 16 months. I was complaining about virtual stuff. Right before 2020 hit, I'm flying home with my wife from a speaking engagement. And I look at her, I go, we need to look into virtual talks.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, COVID hits. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it because I have to. I want to do it because I wanted to. But then, like you said, we're doing something and it doesn't go exactly like we want to. And we get mad and we're like, I don't like where I'm living. Wait a minute. I've got a place to live.
Yep.
I'm comfortable. I got a wife who loves me and I love her, and we lift each other up. We have great kids. What are we complaining about? And you just set yourself straight. And sometimes I have to give myself a talk. And we make things out to be so much worse when it's personal.
Yeah.
And we don't relish the things that we have going in our direction. And we need to learn to smile and brush it off and go, this is not bad at all.
Nope. And it happened at the end of the day. Like, there's no going back. Like, you can't change anything that happened. Like, it's not worth, pissing and moaning about at the end of the day.
Exactly.
It stinks,
Right.
stings, but at the same time, it happened. So, like, you kind of have to adapt no matter what.
Life is about adaptation, and we are all human beings. We're all going to screw up. Get over yourself, man,
Yep.
and just make a mistake, giggle about it, and you know what? You're one step closer to being where it is you want to be. Quit griping.
100%. I mean, amen, man. Like, to me, like, that is the most important lesson that you have to learn. It takes time, especially when you're like a young kid, like stupid things make you angry and you hold on to them, you hold a grudge. Like, you got to learn to, obviously that's probably the selfish thing in all of it. You have to learn to love yourself before you can love others, because that's how you're going to be able to help spread that message across. Right.
That is actually one of the lessons my grandfather taught me. He goes, you
Yeah.
can't respect anybody else till you respect yourself first. And that self-hatred comes with respect.
Yep.
And we don't respect ourselves, therefore we're not good enough, therefore we compare ourselves to everybody else, therefore I'm a loser, therefore I'm depressed. And it just keeps sliding down that hill, and you keep coming up with different verbs to go, this is what I am and that's what I am. We don't go, everybody's different.
Yep.
My talent may not be to be a big league pitcher for 20 years. I'm a speaker for 20 years.
Yep.
And you know what? There's no wear and tear in that. All you have to do is get on a plane, go somewhere, talk to them, and go home. And sometimes we gripe about the smallest things that do not matter.
I think the most important thing, I think the most telling thing that you have said about your grandfather and some of, your speaking engagements that you've done is that he always used to say, like, you're not who you are in front of other people. You are who you are behind the scenes when nobody's looking. And that's what builds character.
Yeah.
How long have you, obviously that is probably the best piece of advice and eye-opening statement that you could hear from someone, at least in my eyes. Like, I heard it when I was listening to you speak about it. Like, oh my, like I paused the YouTube clip on my screen and I was like, oh my God, like that's so true. Like, that really like switches things up. So how often do you kind of teach that, that statement in other forms of words and other forms of teachings to people around the world who are, struggling with not only like mental health, but at the same time think they have it much worse than they actually have?
To every single group I talk to.
Yeah.
Because I think that is one of the most important lessons. And I'll tell you what, I'm a male, and males don't get things. We don't mature as quickly as females.
Yeah.
And so it took me until I was 35 watching a group of teenagers celebrate an accomplishment that not even they thought they could accomplish. When I looked out the bus window from the driver's seat and saw these kids hugging each other, and I thought, I get it. It's not about me. It's about we.
Yep.
And we're in this together. And what are we going to do about this? And how are we going to make life better on the field, on the bus, at the school, in baseball, wherever it is? How are we going to make this better? We can gripe all day long, but once you get on that train, you get on the gripe train, we learn to gripe about everything. And that's a hard habit to break. And so we need to be more positive and go, this is bad, but I'm not in a cancer ward and I'm going to die. And those kids taught me that. And we come up with things that we want, and then we look at things that other people have, and we don't want what we have. We want something else. But we can't be that person. You're you, and you got to be the best you can be. I'm me, and I got to be the best me I can be. And that's it. That's how we've got to approach this.
And with that being said, and this will be the last thing I ask you, I don't want to take all of your Wednesday because I tend to ask question after question after question. But for you, you know, with the book, the movie, it's been out for years, you know, being a public speaker for 20 plus years, is there anything else that you want to do in order to spread the message? Do you feel like you've literally, you know, exhausted all options to spread the message, obviously going from city to city to city to talk about it? But are there any, you know, partnerships that you'd want to do and anybody else that you'd want to work with in order to, again, spread the message that you're spreading?
We're actually working on that right now. In the book that I had come out last year, Dream Makers, we're working on, for the secular people, we're working on a workshop for work.
Wow.
And the other people, we're working on a Bible study. And I just think that goes hand in hand because we all want to treat people better. And we need to love and quit hating. And we need to have faith and hope, not despair and defeat. And so, yeah, there's some people I want to team up with, and we're going to see how that works. But I want to do workshops, and I want to go in and I want to teach businesses, we're going to do this and we're going to do this, and watch how good things become.
Yeah.
And everything we do is a team, and it may not be sports related, but we all have different teams that we play on.
Wow. And again, like that is very interesting to hear, because again, with the book, the movie, everything that you got going on, like you continue to have a why to grow that message. And like, even though it's reached, again, thousands of people, you've inspired people, people have reached out to you, you know, you've been able to touch people in that regard, and you're still trying to find other ways to reach a wider audience, which is inspiring in its own right. And I do want to thank you for being gracious enough for taking the last, I don't know, hour out of your day. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your time.
Oh, you're fine.
Thanks so much to Shauna for setting this up as well. And
Yes,
again, I wish you guys the best of luck. Obviously, the book came out last year. It's still available. You got everything going on, and I wish you the best of luck. And definitely we will be in touch soon because, again, I'm inspired by your story, and I love talking to people who are as passionate about this as I am.
Awesome, Jack. I look forward to it, and call anytime you want.
Thank you so much, Jim.
You bet.